Well, very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. This session, as you can see up on the screen here, is presented in association with the Entertainment Masterclass. I'm not going to go into it because there are leaflets outside, and I'm sure you've been handed those leaflets. And if you haven't, they're on a table when you leave. The Entertainment Masterclass is, in short, the world's first entertainment academy. You can find out all about it on their website, and as I said, on literature outside. I'm very excited, in association with the EMC and MIP-TV, to introduce to you Mr. Roy Ackerman, an extraordinary filmmaker. In the first half of his career, he was creative director at Diverse Productions, where he was executive producer on an extraordinary raft of films, including the BAFTA-winning epic Tsunami, 7 Hours on Boxing Day. The second half of his career, maybe he'll tell us that there are more halves of it, but the second and current part of his career, he's managing director of Fresh One Productions, the company founded by Jamie Oliver in the year 2000. Jamie Oliver, I'm sure you all know, is a national treasure in the United Kingdom. He's a television chef, but has gone on to make some extraordinary campaigning films with Roy, including Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, Ministry of Food, and School Dinners. Now, I haven't told you a great deal about his work at Diverse because we have a wonderful film to show you. So before we bring Roy onto the stage, let's have a look at some of his early work.
He's a liar. I think he's responsible for kidnapping, for murder.
Let's just stop. Can we stop for a minute?
At 8 o'clock in the morning, something colossal happened.
When I taste that drug, I now know what I'm writing about. I can now write about this thing in the first person from personal experience.
10 years ago, I started photographing a gang of violent neo-Nazi skinheads. The gang were one of the most fanatically militant in the country, under constant police surveillance.
It's a war. That geezer, he thought as a war. I can understand what he was thinking. It occurred, yeah.
Channel 4 have given me £12,000 to gamble with, and I'm looking forward to it.
Do not believe it! It's the first mistake he's made in his bloody jumping career. He's on, he's coming, he's running back! He's around! Come on, flash it!
There's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said, "Wanted, dead or alive."
I don't really care if we catch him, I just hope that we kill him.
What was to transpire was a tragedy for sport, for a free nation, and for a man who was marketed as the very best of the new South Africa.
Name me a game which was fixed then.
I never know any game for sure that was fixed. It's hearsay.
Operation Foxley was an assassination plan that could have ended the war early and saved millions of lives. It could have changed the course of history. This is the story of that plan. My plan to kill Hitler.
The charge against me is criminal contempt of court. I've been accused of lowering the dignity of the Supreme Court, of scandalizing it and lowering its authority, and that's a criminal offense. I could be sent to prison for 6 months or for 2 months or for 1 day or until the rising of the court, or I could be humiliated and let off.
Blowback does not mean simply the unintended consequences of foreign operations. It means the unintended consequences of foreign operations that were deliberately kept secret from the American public, so that when the retaliation comes, the American public is not able to put it in context, to put cause and effect together.
Sing with us on the big red bus with the long thin dog and the jumping frog.
She's crying now. She is. Your mum is crying.
Whenever I come here, I'm reminded of the incredible need that exists in places like this. I started out on this journey wondering if Britain's riches were big enough to give the money away. But I've learned something different in a way, something about myself.
I don't like the asylum seekers because they're sponsored off the English government. And the French people are very happy to get rid of them to our country.
We are requesting to the British government that we give us only a safe life. We don't need anything more.
We're kind of like, we're artisans rather than artists, musicians. It's not as if anyone can say you're a weed or a sissy or anything like that, because it's just that you do something as well as everything else.
It's hard to overstate the element of risk in what we're about to see. Apart from anything else, English National Opera are putting huge faith in these two untried singers, attempting something that's never been done before.
Always I find some cure for my sorrow.
Find a blast, we're playing fast and loose. And all that jazz, right up here is where I store the juice. And all that jazz.
And yes, we both reach for the gun. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, we both, oh yes, we both, oh yes, we both reach for the gun, the gun, the gun, the gun. Oh yes, we both reach for the gun, for the gun. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, we both, oh yes, we both, oh yes, we both reach for the gun, the gun, the gun, the gun. Oh yes, we both reach for the gun, for the gun.
From what I've been told, when I was 2, my dad murdered my mum. So I don't see my dad that often, and I live with my granddad and my sisters, but I don't have a mum, so.
I've decided to put you in the whole ballet. You're going to do Act 1 and Act 2, definitely. Rory's not going to do any of it. It's going to be Lyndon, Act 1 and Act 2. And you're going to be a wow.
Be a wow.
Gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's some fantastic filmmaking there. So let's meet the guy who did it all, Roy Ackerman. It's all very emotional stuff. Everything up there, even cut closely together like that, every single sequence really gets you there. Has that always been the way you've approached filmmaking?
I think emotion and humour is what I've always wanted. I mean, my favourite filmmaker is Billy Wilder, and I think that the best TV makes you laugh and cry, sometimes at the same time. And I don't, the most successful television that I do not enjoy is exploitative television. And you can see the producer playing with your emotions in an unpleasant way. And, you know, all producing is playing with emotions, because that's our job. But, yeah, and I mean, the things that I've enjoyed most, I mean, the gambler, the guy watching the horse race. I mean, he's become a friend of mine, and the guy is completely in the moment. And I remember that shot, I mean, that shot holds on his face for, at one point, about 3-4 minutes. And it's one of my favorite shots in everything I've ever done, because he's got, I think he's got like $3,000 on the horse. And the format was that he basically gambled his fee. So he had $12,000 and he gambled his fee. And being very unpleasant people, we stopped him gambling on the things that we knew he was going to win on. If he'd had his chance, he would have just gambled on horses and boxing. But of course, that would have been a really boring film. He'd have made lots of money. So we sort of set rules that he had to kind of travel around the world and bet on lots of things. And he had $3,000 on that horse. And the horse is all the way at the front, and then it stumbles at the last. And his face is, I mean, everything's there. And it is funny and emotional.
How do you avoid then? You said you don't like exploitation. Where is the line between, you know, moving us, the viewer, we the viewers, and exploiting the viewers or the subject of the film?
I hate jargon, but I've got a piece of jargon that I use around TV, which is it's a kind of line of trust. And I think, you know, when you work in television, particularly with real people, there's somebody there, like that refugee in Calais, or one of those people, and they form a relationship with a researcher or an assistant producer, who then usually brings them to the producer, and the producer works with the series producer, an executive producer, usually a junior commissioning editor, and then a channel controller. And the channel controller makes all the decisions. I mean, increasingly as television goes on, and decisions down to even saying, I want that bit cut out. And I think if the chain from that guy on the street to the channel controller is broken anywhere along the line, something bad will happen. I think something bad will happen to the person, usually to the person who's on the screen. And in the end, apart from the people who we're, the audience, they are the most important people. And I think that, yeah, I'm not whiter than the driven snow. I think that, and I think it would be pretentious to pretend that you were. I think television, in the end, involves shaping reality. And there are times when you have to tell somebody that it has to be that way. So I'm not, you know, completely saintly. But I think if it feels wrong, you shouldn't do it. And I think by and large, the people who work for me and the ones I keep working with know instinctively when it's wrong.
Now, you started out as a reporter, a journalist. What took you into film? Had you always had the urge to find the information, find the truth, and present it to a wider audience?
It's not quite as noble as that. My father worked in TV. He was the guy who designed all the lighting rigs at the BBC. Came over from South Africa, so a lot of the studios that, well, probably they're closing now, but he designed the look of those. And, you know, when I was 10, we used to go like to the Basil Brush show for my sort of birthday party. And it was very cool. I used to get tickets for 20 of us to go to the Golders Green Hippodrome to see the Basil Brush show. And I always loved telly. I've always loved TV. I mean, Britain is a very snobby country, as we know. It's full of people who think that television's not real art. But I love TV. I've always loved it.
So it was a love for it as a young person that took you into ending up making it.
My mum sent me to a careers guidance counsellor. She just wanted to be sure. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I found the report recently. And I was always going to go to the media, and I got a job. I mean, 1982, when I left university, Channel 4 was setting up, and TVAM was setting up. So it was like suddenly breakfast TV an extra 3 hours a day, and Channel 4 was a whole new channel. So there was a lot more airtime, and suddenly an explosion of jobs. And in a way, until multi-channel, that was the biggest expansion that there had been. And now we've got, of course, the internet and new platforms. And in a way, every new paradigm shift creates new work. And Channel 4 and the growth of the independent sector was a completely new world, and I joined at that time.
What took you into the hard-hitting sphere of filmmaking? Because some of that stuff is really...
I like hard targets. Tough. I think television can sometimes take soft targets on. I think some of the people who television mock are easy bait, and it's either sad celebrities who aren't having a great time, or, you know, ordinary people who put themselves up to be put in the sort of television stocks, as it were. Having a go at Henry Kissinger's fun.
Yeah.
And in fact, those two films, we actually talked to Henry Kissinger. I think that television has an amazing platform. You can pick up the phone and you can phone anybody. You can say, I want to talk to Bill Clinton. You know, when we did a show called Dream School, we called pretty well everyone famous in the world, and quite a few of them responded. So it's an incredible privilege. And I've always just been, I get bored very quickly. And when people, like, you know, the White, 100% White, which is a BAFTA-winning film, it was a photographer. He showed me some rushes of these neo-Nazis, and it was amazing stuff, and I couldn't not want to push it. And we got the commission. He's since gone on to make a whole load of great films.
What are the ramifications of having a go at Henry Kissinger? I mean, is there backroom stuff that goes on? Do you get people in high places trying to stop things going out?
That was from working with Christopher Hitchens, you know, God rest his soul, amazing man. And he said, well, I want to have a go at Henry Kissinger. Channel 4 said, that'll be boring. So I took it to BBC, who didn't want it, and then his book came out, and then suddenly they did. And I worked with a couple of now Sundance and Oscar-winning filmmakers who I still work with. Kissinger didn't have a go with us, and in another film, which the other film was about the Holocaust, and Kissinger was in that film. They're not the same film, they're two different films. And I can't remember which was first, to be honest, and I don't think Kissinger would know who I was from a hole in the wall.
Right.
I think we've got a script, a fiction film, which we hope to make about the Playboy Club. We have not gone to Playboy for their permission. It's in the ether. I don't believe that you should comply with the rules unless you really, really have to.
And what about neo-Nazis?
Well, the filmmaker put himself at risk. It was the early days of single camera shooting. He had found out that the main neo-Nazi character had a black girlfriend, which was a bombshell. And we all said, you know, you've got to get this. And he said, don't tell the commissioning editor, because I don't think I can get it on camera. So I said, so I didn't. But he went on his own down to the guy's house and said, look, you know, I know this, you know this, will you talk about it? Incredibly brave.
Yes.
And I said, do you want me to come with you? He said, no, I can't, you know, you can't. No, it wasn't my bravery, amazingly brave guy.
We're at an international marketplace, and obviously the goal for all filmmakers and production companies is for their material to be seen as widely as possible. Do you always have an international audience in mind?
As time's gone by, the company I bought was acquired and eventually became part of Zodiac, and so I learnt quite a lot. I'm a great believer in serendipity. I mean, Opportunity, the opera show, was a kind of breakout show for me. That was a series of interwoven accidents that led to a show that has since, you know, changed that form of television, sort of arts culture. And that, you know, did well around the world, done other shows, but I think you have to think about what excites you, and usually what excites a commissioning editor. That's where the great shows are formed, usually in a conversation between somebody like me, picking up an idea that one of my team has come up with and talking with one person. All the best shows are that. And you don't sit there thinking, well, I'm not one who believes if you sit there thinking what will travel the world, I think that tends to lead to bland, boring shit, really. And I don't like that kind of stuff. I think if you follow your instincts, you're more likely to come up with a hit. That said, I think that you can't be in the business 30 years without working out that certain things travel. And now when people come to me, I do think of things that I think will travel. But I still will make films that will appeal to a bunch of people on BBC 4 or a bunch of people watching Channel 4. And I think that I'm free in the job I do not just to make global hits. I think some companies are based almost entirely around the idea that you could only make money with a show that plays on the BBC and then travels. And it's true, that is a way of making money. It's not what drives me every day of the week, every hour of the day.
We saw Opportunity, Musicality, and Ballet-Who. This was a period which you've said, I know, the music content that you've produced changed your career. How did that How did that happen?
Well, you know, I'd played in bands at college. I'd always been into music. And, you know, you said how to get into hard current affairs. I probably, my instincts were in sort of what we now call factual entertainment. It wasn't around at the time. So, you know, that's sort of where I always wanted to get. But I've always enjoyed everything I've done. But, no, a guy walked into my office and he said, look, I know a bloke who's producing a disc which you can sing along with opera. It's like opera karaoke. So I thought, opera karaoke, that's a good idea. Pitched it, didn't work. But in the process, an idea emerged, which was to try. I said to the head of the opera house, the English National Opera, could you put an amateur on the stage? If I'd been more into opera, which I wasn't particularly at the time, I wouldn't have asked the question. No one had asked it before. 2 years later, the show was a surprise. You know, we had a blind mother of four singing Rigoletto, and it was a big hit, and it travelled. And then I wanted to do musical theatre, which is an even bigger hit. And then ballet was about, could you use ballet to transform lives like they'd done with the choir? It was before the choir. It was the first of those kind of transformational shows. And I just loved it. We were backstage and walking into a theatre knowing it was your show. It's different than making a TV show. I remember I walked up and I saw Chicago with our stars, and it just felt fantastic, because I'd done a bit of theatre directing, and it was the perfect mix of wanting to be a bit of an impresario and TV, and I love that. And I've done a few more of those kind of shows. They've gone on to kind of become quite a big part of the schedule. That was before things like the Andrew Lloyd Webber shows, which did very well on BBC One. And it was even before X Factor had really hit the big time. It was around that time that kind of performance in the late 90s was nowhere. There was no singing and dancing in prime time. There really wasn't. And now it's everywhere.
And what were the years that the three that we saw?
I think they were 2003, 4, 5, and 6,
Right.
around that time. And I've done a few since then of that kind.
Yeah. Well, we must move on to Fresh One. You're managing director there, and it's Jamie Oliver's company. And there's been some remarkable material come from there. The campaigning programs about diet, and then moving on to education. Can you talk us through how you came around to that type of filmmaking?
Well, firstly, some of the shows that you talked about at the beginning, I had no responsibility for because they were made before I got there. Yeah. No, I'd been at Diverse pretty much 20 years, and I got a call from my now business partner who runs the company, saying that he was looking for a managing director, because the problem for Jamie was that they wouldn't commission shows without him in it. And, you know, he had other interests, his books, and what were to be his restaurants. So I got invited in. It took me a while to know whether I wanted to go from quite a big company to a small one, and is the best decision I could have made. He's an amazing guy. And people would come up to me and say, what's Jamie asked you to do? And I would answer, honestly, I don't know, I haven't asked him. And he never gave me a brief. He just said, build the company. I mean, I came up with some ideas, and you know, I'm now part of a group where we're the telly bit, and there's restaurants and products and all sorts of other bits. It's a kind of unique little group. It's not like the others.
Let's have a look at some of that material that's come out since you've been working with Jamie. I think we have a clip here or two.
Welcome to beautiful Huntington, West Virginia. Population 50,000, home of Marshall University, and recently named the unhealthiest city in America. In a place where nearly half of the adults are considered obese and incidents of heart disease and diabetes lead the nation, one man will try to save 50,000 lives.
How you doing? I'm Jamie.
Jamie Oliver, renowned British chef, who transformed the British school food program.
Everyone can do better.
Has left his family behind.
Hi, Daddy.
And come to our shores to take on the biggest mission of his life, to lead a food revolution.
I'm here to show America just a little effort can make a massive difference.
But in this town, the revolution will meet resistance.
What are you here for?
The results came out that this town was the most unhealthy town in America. This is a government statistic based on death.
We don't want to sit around and eat lettuce all day.
I don't think Jamie's got anything that can change this town. He can try all he wants.
I don't think he's got it.
I thought there was only miserable bastards like that in England. How's your pizza for breakfast? In all of my years, I've never seen pizza given for breakfast. Who knows what this is?
Potatoes.
So you think these are potatoes? This is the future of America. Are the fries counted as a veggie?
The fries count as a vegetable.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? What's right with that? Would you eat that?
Yes, I think it's good.
I'm talking about causing a big fuss and changing things. Change.
Yeah, okay.
They don't understand me because they don't know why I'm here.
He hopes to change Huntington's health forever.
You think that's not important? Then shame on you. The reason I've got you all here today, guys, is because all of you need to make sure that this works. It's really important that everyone does their bit. You don't have to do a lot, but if you all do your bit, change in every school in the country really can happen. It really can.
Some see aggression
Who the f does she think she is?
and hopelessness
I'm not strong enough, I can't.
and disrespect.
Can we have all the laptops up?
We see potential.
That's amazing.
We see the dream.
I'm really excited, really daunted. I can't believe I've got my own school. It's gonna be a bloody lunatic asylum.
The challenge to find the kids the education system left behind.
How you doing, all right? Yeah. Put your hands up if you had a crap time at school, you didn't get good results.
To try over 4 weeks to get them back into learning.
The most important thing about Dream School is that we engage the unengaged.
The plan. Enlist the most inspiring teachers.
Like it.
Brilliant.
How can I speak so confidently as to give you his exact height?
What was the question?
Great, it's his armour.
In Dream School, I was surprised how brilliant some of them could really be. I was also surprised how unteachable they could be at moments. And it's so hard being a teacher.
Fantastic stuff. Now, of course, we first knew Jamie Oliver as a TV chef. That's what he was. He extremely successful at that. He's gone on to produce with you this incredible campaigning stuff. And again, occasionally there's a bit of danger there. He could have really upset the wrong people in America with that particular show. And some of those people could have been ridiculed, as you talked about earlier. So it's quite a fine balance, isn't it, making a film like that? And it's a sensitive soul at the heart of it, I think, with Jamie Oliver.
Yeah, just before he's crying there, he'd been on the phone. I think his wife had a go at him for what's he doing out there when he should be home with his kids, and he's not having a good day. It's very hard when you're talking about... I don't generally suck up to my bosses. Jamie isn't a boss in the regular sense. He's too busy to micromanage, and as I say, he doesn't really tell us what to do, but he is inspirational. And I think companies where it's really obvious what the values of the company are really easy to work for. I think where the values of the company are confused, it's really hard. And I think all of us who work for companies where it's like that, you know what that means. Yeah, if you work for the BBC, you should know you're a public service broadcaster, roughly speaking. If you work for Jamie Oliver, you're there to kind of make the world a better place. And that is genuinely how he sees the world. He's got a wicked sense of humour, and he's not a sort of saint. He can, I've seen him have a few drinks, and he's good fun. But when you're making those programmes, it's really obvious that you do not mess with his brand. You do not want to have people out there who are unhappy. And, we're still involved with that town, Huntingdon. And, occasionally there'll be a note from somebody saying, hang on, that thing you set up's not working as well. And he sends in people to make sure it's right. So the campaign still goes on. Then we moved to LA, which was a nightmare because they didn't want us there. The city really didn't want us there. And sometimes, because I think they felt that he was a sort of reality TV guy, and they put the barriers up, and it was very, very difficult. But there's no temptation to play fast and loose with the regular guy on the street. There's no temptation at all. Dream School was a show I got very involved in. I executive produced that show. And some of those kids behaved very badly. And some of the critics of the show said we should have been harsher on the kids. Jamie didn't want to be, nor did we want to be. I think there's a natural siding with the underdog in that company and with him, and I think it's part of what makes people like him.
Now, we're at MIP Formats, we mustn't forget that. Now, where does the concept of the format come into your work? And are you consciously aware of the concept of a format? Or do you broaden out from that?
I think the story of the format is a fascinating story. Documentary makers have always messed around with reality. They would be swaps long before Wife Swap. I mean, I can remember a film where guys from a really rough school went to Eton and they swapped around. I mean, that's a classic trope of the documentary. Formats sort of started coming in, I suppose, with things like changing rooms back in. And at the time, we completely missed out. Now, I remember the company I was working for, Diverse, went from about 6 million turnover to about nothing in about 2 years because we missed out on the format thing. Personally, and I think we gave the title of this show that it's not just the format, it's the brand, I think formats are a fascinating thing. They are the commodification of television. By and large, television programs shot in one country not many of them sell very well. I mean, a film about some guys in a part of England isn't naturally going to be of interest to someone in Australia. But if you take an idea, it can travel like a gas invisibly across borders. And it's a brilliant idea. And as an idea, it takes the margins in television, which are quite low, and increases them. I mean, it is driven as much by economics as by creativity. Now, there are some amazing formats, and you don't need me to tell what they are, but there's something about it. And I remember writing a piece a few years ago, which I called The Great Big Subprime Format Crash. And I think formats are very good for the producers. I mean, they're really good. They made a lot of people rich. I mean, I made some money. An Opportunity was a format. It wasn't invented as a format. And one of the things I feel about formats is that you sometimes look at the schedules and they're nothing but formats, particularly in smaller territories, that if you go to places like Australia and Canada, a lot of them would like to make their own shows, but what they get is imported formats. Whether that's good for the viewer is an interesting debate, and it's not one we can solve here, but it is something worth discussing, because we're here at an industry forum. The viewers are not here. There are no viewers at this forum, and it'd be really interesting to actually work out whether television is better for viewers with the preponderance of formats. In my own career, Opportunity, it got made in a few other territories, very successfully in Australia, and it was wonderful seeing the same process take place there. I've certainly made shows which have travelled. I wouldn't say that personally I would compete with the great format producers that you've had here. Interestingly, and to just be a bit controversial, Food Revolution was repeated. They did a second series. We said to ABC, let's make something different. In the end, through a series of decisions, we ended up making the same show again, and it wasn't as good. It really wasn't as good. It's partly not as good because the LA people just didn't want us there. But it wasn't a format. It was something Jamie did because he really wanted to do it. And he wanted to do it in America because America's the most important place if you want to change behavior. When we did it again, it never quite worked. So I think there are a few genius formats, X Factor, Wife Swap, and there are many of them. And I do have my team working on them. But I would never want to run a company where that was all we did.
And Jamie is the brand. So really, what you're saying is that would be hard to repeat without him.
They did do it once. Well, there's a rule at our company that Jamie's formats don't travel, because they did it once in France and it made it harder for Jamie to sell his programs and his stuff in France. It wasn't good, and that was all before my time. I wanted to get formats going. I said, Dream School is a format, and Dream School is about to be made in America, South Africa, Israel, and a few other territories, and I think it's a great format. We always thought this could be a format, and in fact, we invented Dream School before Jamie agreed to do it. So Dream School, I think, is a format, and it's a format I'm very passionate about. The brand thing, though, is very interesting, in that I was brought in to expand Fresh One, because the limits of the company was he only got 24 hours in a day. and he has a life and 4 kids and lots of other things to do. So we had to think of how we could build beyond him. But if you look at the Jamie Oliver Group, its turnover last year was in excess of £200 million. That's a lot of money. And a lot of it goes to charity, which is one of the reasons it's a nice place to work. And television was the front window. So it is interesting if you're a producer, and obviously we're here to give takeaway for people who've paid money to come here, is I think a lot of television, they've thought, well, the margins on television are quite low, so the format's the only way to increase them. I think brands, where you can make money off other products, is another way of taking television and looking at ways of building companies that can be successful. And that's one of the things we're going to do more of in the next 10 years.
I can't believe it, but we nearly have to come to a close. So I'd like to open this out to the audience. If there is anybody there who would like to ask Roy a question. And if there is, we have the gentleman there. We have a microphone for you there.
Hi.
How are you? Would one thing that you would try and do would be to find the next Jamie Oliver and bring him into your company and groom him or her?
No and yes. We've definitely got a strategy of seeing whether the skills we've got can be leveraged and used with other people, because I think that's something we feel we've spent 10, 15 years working out and making mistakes on the way and working with Jamie. So yeah, absolutely. But I think that you can't replicate people. And there will never be another Jamie Oliver. And there probably won't be anyone who will be as successful as him. So we don't think that way. It's a bit like being the next Maradona in football or the next, Laurence Olivier in acting or something. But yeah, I think there is a business model there, which is interesting. And it is about thinking about how do you start with somebody who's probably a TV star, will probably have done something beforehand, and what can you do with that person? And we've learned a lot, and the key things that I have learned, and I'm very much a beginner in this, is authenticity is the key. And it's an overused word, like passion, like journey, those words that are overused in television. But authenticity, which is actually meaning it and really meaning it and not pretending to mean it. There are a lot of people who do authentic, lots of people who do passion, but you've got to be it. And I think Jamie is like that. And so, we're looking for those people, and 99 out of 100 aren't like that. And, but it's a very exciting world to look into, because in the end, if you're in TV, you should be about people. And Jamie's a person, and these people, they bleed, they cry, they get upset, but so I'm getting very interested in that as being a way forward. My team do work on formats as well, but I think it's just another arm to our business.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, I can see a hand there, and the microphone's coming to you.
Yeah, I'm interested to understand in your company, Fresh One, how do you plan and budget for innovation? What is your process?
God, that's the best possible question and the hardest one. I've been asked that a lot over time. I think that the good things that have happened to our company have always been from unexpected places. We do a lot of brainstorming. I like brainstorming, but I read an amazing piece in the New Yorker a few weeks ago that told me that everything you think you know about brainstorming is wrong. And a lot of the sort of nostrums and the rules of brainstorming, which were sort of invented in the age of sort of madmen, are wrong. So I'm trying to rethink all that. Mostly, the best ideas come because somebody's having a conversation with somebody and they bring it in, and then somebody talks to somebody else, and it's a series of binary conversations. So I just try and surround myself with people who are cleverer than me. I try and see as many people I don't know. I try and encourage people to meet people and have interactions. I think generally it's a series of sort of small chemical reactions that in the end lead to a conversation between one producer type person and one person with a checkbook. And I think if the person with an idea meets somebody with a checkbook, and then they hire a great team. You can produce amazing stuff. I would love to have the money, and maybe we will have the money in the future, to sort of create more time and space for people to talk. But often when you say we're all going to go away for 2 days and come up with an idea, it doesn't usually work. So I'm a great believer in accidents. I'm a great believer in just having a really amazing bunch of people who debate, argue, but basically like each other. I don't have a process. I would love to have the time to think about having one. In the end, and the one thing you do need is access. If you don't have access to the person with the checkbook, great ideas don't happen. And I have got literally whole schedules worth of unmade ideas that I left behind at Diverse, and a number of them now. So in the end, if you have great ideas plus access, and then are allowed to make a great show, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my approach.
Thank you very much, Roy. Well, we've run out of time. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. And I'm sure you'd like to join me in thanking Roy Ackerman for a fascinating session. Thanks very much, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.